Hello and welcome to another episode of the American Soccer Analysis Show. I am your host, Kieran, and I'm joined by two of the most astute anonymous soccer analysts around, Harrison Homie Crow and Benjamin Benito Suarez Bellman. Gentlemen, both of you represent playoff teams. I do not. I do
Wait,
not.
you said two astute guys. We have guys joining us.
Yeah. Actually, Mike and Bergio and Sam
There you
Goldberg are
go.
joining us later.
There you go.
Uh,
Thank goodness.
You know what? That's
yeah.
who people really want to listen to. I mean, maybe Ben, but not me. Like for sure.
Harrison, I know for a fact that people really enjoyed your rant about um about the FC Cincinnati coach.
Oh God.
Yeah,
I was blanking on
I
this.
think people were really I think people like to hear you, Harrison. Regardless, what people do like to hear? They like to hear about the playoffs. And we are in the playoffs. We're recording this Wednesday night right before Vancouver Portland, which is a Vancouver home game in Portland, which is fun. Um but So we've seen that Atlanta beat Montreal in a shootout, and we're just going to go through the series. We're going to set a timer. We're going to put 5 minutes. We're going to go through, and we're going to talk about the stats. There's 8 series. They're all best of three. I think there's some like really, really fun wrinkles to the fact that the games are best of three. I think we litigated this last year, but like, do you guys like the best of three? Harrison, you didn't like it, right? Or
No,
did you?
I don't.
You don't like it? What is it you don't like about it?
Like I guess I don't know. You put me on the spot. I feel like it's funny because I was thinking about this about the wild card series for baseball, and I kind of feel the same way. I just don't like it. I feel like it essentially tries to give a little bit of length and tries to cut out some of the randomness when reality the randomness is kind of what makes like that type of
That's like kind of the point of playoffs, right? Is
yeah,
like
that's
it's
kind of
noisier.
yeah, it is noisier and just in a tournament setting, like that's just what it is. Let's not pretend. Like let's lean into it a little bit. That I don't like the 3 games because I feel like realistically you're looking at 5 games is where you're really cutting out the noise. And
Yeah, but
soccer's just
you can't
right,
do
right.
that in
You're not going to
soccer.
have 5 games, so let's just do the one game. Like it just extends the season so long. I would prefer just a one all. Put everybody at the top seeds, put them at home. I don't know. That's there's problems with just about every different assortment of this. So I don't like when I start like thinking through how to articulate what I don't about the 3 game, I start thinking about the problems with the 1 game. Right?
Yeah,
Like
It
so
well,
all
I
it
mean,
all just comes flooding back. Me just
yeah,
sitting
it's
here, having sat in the stadium, losing to Portland on a cross of the
yeah,
eighty-ninth
the double
minute.
post.
No, that was I'm talking about the 2001 Thanksgiving game, which I was in
Oh
person
oh
goodness.
for, having to have my heart ripped out and then go home for
Do you like
that.
the best of three, Ben?
I do. But
Same.
I understand it's over. And I was like literally looking at the bracket just now, being like, oh my God, MLS finals on December 7th. This is not
So
ideal.
you know what
But
though?
I do like it.
Even before, like when TFC won MLS Cup, I flew back from Vancouver and it was December 10th.
Mhm.
Like I distinctly remember the date. Um, Yeah, I think I think the thing that I really like about the best of three is like it gives a lot of room for stories to breathe and it gives a lot of room for like soccer things to happen. Where like if you are the better team in a best of three, you can play to win without the risk that if you get caught on the counter, who cares? But if you are the worst team, you can play for 2 draws to win in a shootout in advance. And if you lose one of the games, it's not a big deal. Like I think it rewards a variety of strategies without like really incentivizing conservative play. Um,
And
and
I hate
I think it's so cool that we're gonna get Atlanta and Miami will have played each other 5 times this season.
Mhm.
Columbus and New York Red Bull are gonna play each other 4 times in a row. Like that is such a unique thing that like you legitimately get nowhere else but MLS, and I think that's a really cool thing.
I think the biggest innovation is getting rid of extra time. I
For
hate
sure.
extra time, and I'm willing to deal with other imperfections to not have to deal with extra time in any tournament format
You hate
again.
extra
I
time?
do. I do. It's not soccer. It's not real
Wow.
soccer.
What do you think Weeby thinks about that? That's so original. I think Extra Time Radio is a great show. How dare you? Regardless, gentlemen, we're setting the timer. 5 minutes per series. We're gonna start in the East and at the top. We're gonna start with Inter Miami and Atlanta. I think we should give Atlanta a like brief clap or pat on the back for beating Montreal in what was a frankly ridiculous game. They go up 2-0, then they cough it up and like the most ridiculous choke of all time, like a stupid penalty and a Guzan like just vomiting the ball to Joseph inside the 6 yard box. Bit of needle between those two, which I thought was really fun. And then they went it in a shootout. And we had talked about Atlanta a few weeks ago, and Harrison, like you made the point about like they probably don't care if they make the playoffs because they're headed for a rebuild this summer regardless, and it's just all gravy from what you get this year.
I
But
don't even know if
now,
it's I don't know even know I wouldn't call it gravy at this point in time. I think it's almost prolonging the inevitable. Like
yeah,
it's
but
kind of this weird spot, right?
think about it this way. Think about how much extra DP salary you can pay with another messy game at Mercedes-Benz.
Oh, for sure.
That's like $7 million.
That's some money. That is definitely some
Yeah.
money that's coming in for sure.
I don't think it means much to the club, but I think everyone's certainly happy because you still get player bonuses, right, for getting in
Yep.
playoff games. So I'm like, I'm sure everyone's happy, but for me, it's just a sign of, oh man, the East was so much worse than we all thought it was going to be 9 months ago.
I
Um,
mean, it's really
that this
telling.
Atlanta team with two different coaches over the year and two different rosters over the year, and they were the ones to not only get into the play-in, but then get through the play-in because Montreal just did not have it after showing some signs of life at the end of the season, and then to be at home and do okay. Like if you look at the G plus game flow on Blue Sky, like they were pretty evenly matched. The XG maybe is not so good for Montreal because they had a penalty, and that gets added into those. So maybe XG they weren't as good, but it was a pretty even match. So, and I remember watching it just thinking it wasn't particularly great soccer. Like all of the goals came from mistakes rather
Oh,
than
yeah.
play creating good, good beautiful soccer earned goals. So
Yeah, I
Miami's
think
gonna win.
yeah, I think this is where we eventually end up, right? Is like Miami are just a better team than Atlanta. However, I'm going to pose this to you. In the two times they played this season, and now it's very hard to get like wrapped up in things like this because like when they played each other, who was hurt, where in the season, what's going on. Like they played in May and they played in September. Atlanta won 1-3-1 in what was Miami's worst performance of the season. It was the second most XG they conceded. It was the largest XG differential they had all season. They lose 3-1 in Miami to Atlanta. And the second time they draw 2-2 in what is about an even game in Atlanta. Atlanta play with a back three in one game, they play with a back four in the other. I think one of the things that's really going to come out in a bunch of these series is like when you play the same team back to back to back, like being able to do different stuff really matters. Like it really matters to have different ideas because if you lose the first game and it's like, okay, well, we that went so poorly tactically, we got to do something different. Like sometimes the only adjustment is the play better adjustment, but sometimes there are like legitimate tactical levers you can pull. And like if I was to be like a smidge hesitant, I might look at it and say, well, Atlanta like have played reasonably well against them. They have different levers they can pull. Maybe, maybe. But then you see Messi score a hat trick in 11 minutes in the final match week, and maybe
Yeah,
not.
but Atlanta has zero pressure.
For sure.
Atlanta has zero pressure right now. Like let's just they are playing 100% with casino money, and there is some expectation that Miami's going to run the floor of this whole playoff system right now, right? There is absolutely 100% that's the expectation. And Atlanta is so I don't know if you can like you can point to a couple different pieces, I suppose. You can kind of isolate Brooks Lennon. You can kind of try to look at a couple different players on that Atlanta team as far as like progression and how you're going to kind of stop them from a tactical perspective. But they are much more they're team based. Let me just say that, right? There's not one person anymore on this Atlanta team that's just going to carry everything, right? Put this team on their back and just say, "All right, I'm gonna go do this," right?
I think this is one of those, are you watching the games or looking at the stats? Because I'm looking at the team G plus tables right now. And if you were to look at Atlanta's for over the season, their offensive, throwing away, fouling, and interrupting, their G plus 4 per game is at 1.31. And Miami's is all the way down at 1.12. So you look at the underlying numbers, you could trick yourself into thinking that Atlanta is the better team. What were Miami's roster? Like Miami is the king of being able, they could do 10 things. They've done 30 different things over the course of the year with Messi out half the time. So you knowing that going in, how flexible it is, they just have the edge, and the underlying numbers I think are going to matter less to me.
Unfortunately, that's our timer. Ben, who you got in the series? Miami?
Miami.
Harrison, Miami?
You know what? I'm gonna go different. I think Atlanta. I'm gonna throw money at Atlanta because why not?
I bet you could get good odds on Atlanta that it would be a worthwhile bet. I'm going to go Miami, unfortunately.
Atlanta could
Maybe
get one, but I think
I think it'll
Miami
go
will
three
get the
games.
two.
I think it'll
Yeah.
go three games because I'm very curious to see if not that I want to prolong our time. I'm curious to see how like teams like Miami manage minutes because
Mm.
it's Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday, right?
Y-
Like how
I
do
think
you
it's a little
hand
more spaced because I think it's 1 day per game or
is it?
something like that. Yeah. I think it's like every 4 to 5 days.
It
I'm not sure though.
is. Oh, you're right. It's a week between all of them.
Oh,
so the schedule came out weird.
It's Saturday, Saturday, Saturday.
Yeah, so initially it showed like them in concurrent days, right? Like
Interesting.
as like there was a traveling day and then boom, you're there playing, but it's not actually that. That was really
Mm.
confusing the way they
All
advertised
right.
the games.
All the old guys will play them. That's boring. Alrighty, next up in the East, we have Orlando. Orlando, the Lions playing Charlotte. Ben, I think this was your game in the rundown.
yeah.
Tell me about these two teams.
So I came into these two teams not knowing a lot. So I didn't have time to look at any tape, folks. Sorry about that. But I was actually a little surprised when I started to break down their team. I wanted to look at their seasons overall and then specifically in like the last 4 to 5 weeks. So overall, you would probably give the edge to Orlando. They've had 46 expected goals for, non-penalties, all penalties thrown out. Charlotte's a little under that. However, Orlando's defense, we think of Charlotte as having the stingy, rock solid defense. Orlando's only given up 40.5 non-penalty expected goals against throughout the year, which is pretty good over, I think it was like the fifth best in the league when you split out the penalties. However, Charlotte are on fire recently. They have like the highest, if one of the highest, if not the highest, like expected goals for per over the past couple per game over the past month and a half at 2.13 per game, which is they're on a real offensive tear that I don't think they were really on up until this point. So they might be getting hot at the right time. But Orlando is good. Like this is going to be an interesting matchup, and I'm still sort of hemming and hawing in my head as to what I actually think is going to go down.
Yeah, it's an interesting one to think about from Charlotte's perspective because Charlotte were like just okay kind of all year, and then they rip off four wins in their last five, and their only draw is Miami. However, they played New England, Chicago,
Hmm.
Montreal, and DC United in that
Yeah,
stretch,
that'll
including
that'll juice that.
A win at DC on the final day in like a really good performance to clinch a like not slipping into the I don't think they could have slipped into the playoff game, but it did end DC season, which was pretty cool. Um, However,
Oh,
I think
harsh.
it's
Poor
cool for
Christian
them.
Benteke.
It's cool for them. Hey, I'm a Benteke guy. I don't know what to think about this because I don't really rate Orlando like that. Like I think they're just very limited and
I know what you mean.
they have like lots of guys, but like they don't do anything as a team. Like every year they come third or fourth, but then you look at the stats and they have like a +1 expected goal differential. And I'm just like, I don't know. They kind of whooped Charlotte both times they played this year, once in June, once in September. 2-0 and a 2-2 draw, but like pretty comfortable XG performances in both. Charlotte had very little of the ball in both those games. I think Dean
They're
Smith,
very much been playing against the ball as a rule, and I think that's still how they've been doing it, but they're just more effective, or I don't know.
I think Dean Smith is a really clever coach. Like I think he did a really good job with Aston Villa when he was in the Premier League. And he's like a very smart defensive coach, very good on set pieces, stuff like that, which maybe lends itself to playoff soccer. Harrison, where are you at on these two teams?
So Orlando is really mistake prone, and this is how I am viewing this series. Is Charlotte is so good from like you talked about with Dean Smith. He's really good with keeping his teams very tactically firm. They don't make a lot of mistakes. They don't foul in bad places. They've only given up one PK all year. Right. So this is a team that like structurally has a lot going for it versus like you kind of hit the nail on the head, right? Orlando is a team of like 11 different people all going almost in 11 different ways at times. It feels like they have guys that can be absolutely gangbusters for moments. The question is whether or not they'll show up. And they play really sloppy. They give up really awkward fouls. They've conceded 8 penalties on their side, which is second most in MLS this season. So
Oh wow.
my perspective is that Orlando has to play clean. They're going to have to play clean because Charlotte is absolutely going to, they're not going to give them cheap fouls. They're not going to get them opportunities to get on the break. They're going to be structurally sound. So can Orlando kind of actually play this very elegant soccer, this breaking down, and they have the pieces to do it, right? They have really good attacking pieces. The question is whether or not they'll be able to do it. Shout out, we have Nico Ladero on the bench coming in for at least 20 minutes in the second half. So keep that in your pocket because, you know, I think that's kind of a forgotten thing. He is a difference maker off that bench for them.
So Harrison, it sounds like as there are is our timer, you've got Orlando in this series.
I kind of lean towards Orlando. I do.
Ben, who
I'm
you
a
got?
Ross. I'm an Oscar Pereja guy. Like I can't quit him as much as I should. Like he's bad. Like I get it, but I can't.
No,
I have trouble.
I've been burned by Oscar before, so I'm gonna have to go with Charlotte on this one, I think.
I thought I would be the lone dissenter, but I think I'm also gonna go Charlotte. I think they do not have like the goal scorers, but I think they will like shithouse their way to something there. I think there's something fun to be had there. Alrighty, next up, Harrison, your game on the docket, FC Cincinnati and New York City FC, the Pigeons. Tell us about this series. Tell us what to look for.
I mean, okay, so two things, right? These are both teams that were really pretty solid. Solid is probably disingenuous to like the type of season that Cincinnati started out with, right? But both the teams have kind of had very middling second halves. And, you know, to my rant last, 2 weeks ago, right? Like Pat Noonan has kind of seemingly like fumbled at the second half. Cincinnati is one of the best away teams. And I feel like they have the pieces to really, really make life difficult. Like honestly, I think that FC Cincinnati should be the team that's favored. But to be perfectly honest, I mean, like even going away to NYCFC, which they're really good at home, that's kind of almost like that. It's almost set up for Luca Orgiano to have kind of like the game of his
You
life there.
you
I feel
had to
like
go back to the well. You couldn't resist it.
right. I have to correct. Like I'm trying. Like people, like let's just say it. Right. I mess people's names up, and so I have to try to like get this in there. But legitimately, when I was looking at this, I'm like, Orgiano is going to have like he could have and be the difference maker in that field is so wonderfully suited towards teams that have these wing backs that like to get forward. I feel
Yeah.
like I feel like Cincinnati, it really plays to their advantage. Cincinnati away is one of two teams with a positive away expected goal differential. And so I feel disingenuous because I really haven't looked at it so much from the NYC FC perspective. I actually hit up Paul Harvey today, who's our ASA resident NYCFC guy, and he kind of concurred with me. Like Oriano scares the hell out of him, which like yeah, absolutely. But um, from NYC's perspective, like this is a pretty decent setup versus what they could have had, right? And so it's just about whether or not they can create those quality chances. Um, because if it's not just Cincinnati turning over opportunities to them, they've struggled, and that's kind of the only way that they've been generating opportunities lately. So shout out to
Yeah.
Paul Harvey.
Shout out Paul Harvey, certified ball knower. Uh, Across their two games this year, they split them one win apiece. One game relatively even XG, the other one 1.5 to 0.5. I think you're totally right to flag up the wing backs getting to the back post, especially at Yankee Stadium. Like it's so narrow for a wing back to get there is really easy. Ben, where are you at on this game or this series?
I really don't know where to go because I think I don't know how much to trust NYCFC. I think I trust
So
Cincinnati a bit more, even despite
I'm gonna give you
yeah, go
this
for
for
it.
free. So
Yep.
from July 6th, okay, they played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 league matches. They won three of them. They were against New York Red Bull, FC Cincinnati, and Nashville, which is like, okay, good
Hmm.
for you. But like draw, loss, draw, loss, draw. Like that's not great. Like this is not a team
Hmm.
who is exactly thriving the back half of the season.
And these are the games where I start to pivot a bit more away from the stats and more into like again the known quantities. There are, at least in terms of MLS, there aren't as many known quantities on NYCFC's roster. Like it's a younger team, but do they have the leadership experience? Have they been through what playoff soccer in this league is before? I have too many questions there, so I think I'm gonna lean Cincinnati over the three games, but
And
it's gonna be another good one.
Apologies. They are not playing at Yankee Stadium. They're playing at Citi Field. I have that in my notes, and I totally
oh,
spaced it, which makes sense because the Yankees are in the World Series. Like,
oh
duh.
yeah, yeah.
That's an
And
obvious one that I just completely
and my
scuffed. So
beloved
Man, imagine
apologies
if
for
it would
that.
have been a Subway
no, but
series.
it's not
Oh, I
like
know,
City.
right?
It's not like City Field is some like expansive pitch. Like it's still
No,
in a
no,
baseball stadium.
it's still going to be pretty narrow in terms of things. But yeah, just want to I want to own that before we get hit in the comments by somebody. So
It's okay. We'll be fine. All right, there's our timer. Harrison, who you got?
Cincinnati, I got
But
Cincinnati. I still believe.
Ben, you got Cincinnati as well.
Yep.
I also have to go Cincinnati. I think they're good enough defensively, and like they've got a pretty. I don't know. New York City have the better goalkeeper, which may matter. May matter. All right,
Especially in Pens.
especially in pens. The last series in the East, to me, this is the best series of the whole first round of the playoffs. I'm going to give you a whole whack load of stats for Columbus, Red Bull, New York, who are about to play each other four times in a row. Here's some fun ones for you. By G plus difference, they are second and third in the league with basically the same number. By expected goal difference, they are the first and second best teams in the East with basically the same number. They have played each other twice. Um, they lost both. New York Red Bulls lost both. One was a 3-0 demolition. I think it was like the second or third game of the season. The other one was just last week. They lose 3-2 to a 90+7 winner in a crazy game. It is, in my opinion, the best clash of styles in the league. You have the Red Bull are top 10 by long balls. Columbus are dead last by long balls. Columbus are second in possession. The Red Bulls are third bottom in possession. Both teams are very pressy. Um, The Red Bulls were like eighth by attacking half, interrupting G plus, whereas the past 5 years they've been number one or number two for all those years. So they've kind of stepped back a little bit to be a little bit more of a mid block transition team. But at the same time, they are the third least pressed team. So they have the fewest interrupting G plus in their half given up because they just play direct very often. This series is so fun and is exactly like why I like best of three because like this is two people fighting and like one person has an axe and one person has a sword and it's like totally different. Totally different. And I'm super excited because I think it's very difficult to find this clash of styles anywhere else in the world.
You realize someone's going to come back with like you understand axe fighting and sword fighting are basically the same thing.
No, but one has like
Someone's going to come back and say this. Like
if look,
I'm marking it. It's going to happen.
okay, sure. Well, whatever. As if one team has a sea, one team has a shield, and the other team. No, it's not like that either. I don't know. My metaphor is
I'm just
gone.
being yeah.
Ben, what do you think? I don't want to hear from Harrison.
Oh no, now I have to do the work. I don't know. I'm interested to see what's happened. I don't know what to say. Like exactly what you said. Like the Red Bulls are always this team that underperforms in the standings relative to what our models say that they
Oh
should
yeah.
be. Like
Oh
they
yeah.
are always like top three in total G plus or G plus difference, and even in expected. Like they always just run the table on underlying numbers, and yet. And
And yet.
yet,
And
so
yet
I
every
mean,
year they don't
just
score.
based on yeah, I think just based on that, I'm gonna have to go with the team that has like proven success in these knockout tournaments, two already this year. It would be insane to count against them, but I'm sure Red Bulls will at least get one of these games. Like this is another one I think is pretty much a lock to go to 3 games, but I know I just it's hard for me to see Columbus letting this one slip.
Harrison, how do you feel about this one?
First of all, your collection of stats was bomb. Like that was
Thank
a
you.
great way to like frame the series because you're absolutely right. Um,
Except for the axe part.
I just gotta give
Except
you.
for your lack of LARPing experience.
Yeah, my lack of hand-to-hand combat
I
awareness.
feel like there's an ASA. There's somebody in the ASA disc that is really into LARPing, and
So somebody in ASA definitely owns a katana above their fireplace.
oh 100%.
There's
Like
no way.
they like I know all these nerds, and it would not like it doesn't surprise me that that's not you, right? Like there's a part of me that's surprised it's not you,
Ben
but
has shifty eyes.
Hey, I've got Vatican holy water to fight off vampires. I don't have a sword though.
okay. Look. I really, 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 really want to believe in New York Red Bulls. Like I really do. Um, I'm failing. I don't feel like their attack is as good as it looks on paper. On paper, it does, like Ben talked about, like there's a lot of underlying stats that show some really positive things. I want to believe in Lewis Morgan. Like I want to wear a Lewis Morgan "I believe in you" t-shirt right now. I just struggle. I felt like he is the comeback player of the year for me and just what he's been able to do. We thought his first year with Red Bull was really good. He's having a better season than that. He is a difference maker for this team. The question is he the only one? And if he is, Columbus will absolutely slap a lock on him and be done with it because that's what Columbus does. They are really good tactically and they will absolutely defeat you in the way that you kind of expect them to.
Look, I think like one of the kind of last stat that I held in reserve from the monologue there is like Cucho is one of the best players in the league by G plus. He was in our best 11. Nobody on the Red Bulls was particularly close to best 11. And as much as soccer is a weak link sport, it's like how bad can you kill the worst player? Cucho is the best guy on the field, and sometimes the best guy on the field wins you the games. And I think Columbus are probably a little bit better suited to like the grind of playing the same team 4 times in a row because much like I said, I think versatility is like a plus. I think Columbus being unyielding in that what they do so well if they win the first game or like they're just better than Red Bull, like I don't think Red Bull have a second thing to go to. Like I think they can lean off the mid block and go super duper duper pressy. Um, like the second time they played, it was like full diamond press, like energy drink soccer. Whereas the first time they played, I think it was like 4-4-2, and they actually tried to play a little bit. But like they gave up all of the ball. I don't know. Maybe that's like the tool they go for. But I just think if for us to get into picks now, like I just can't get past Columbus. Like I just think they're a little bit better. Ben, where are you at with them?
Yeah, same. I think they're better. I think they've got the personnel difference. I think Red Bull just don't have the history of succeeding in the playoffs for me to believe. And I'm
I
gonna keep
think you're
coming
leaning
to it
too
because
much in
it's
the curse.
I mean, it's there has to be something our
Harrison,
models are missing here. I don't know.
take them then.
Yeah,
If you if you
I'll tell you what. I will again be the dissenter because
go on,
I yearn for the underdog. I really do. I think that I think it, New York can absolutely knock off Columbus. I think that it can happen. I'm just not sure it's logical. That's my only little. But yeah, I'll take them.
alrighty. Well, that's the end of the Eastern Conference. We're gonna take a short break. You're gonna hear some music because Kieran feels like editing tonight, and we're gonna come back with the Western Conference right after
Me
this.
boys, walk away, me boys. By morning we'll be free. Wipe the golden tear from your mother dear. There's what's left of the flag for me.
Alrighty, heading over to the Western Conference, 1 versus 8. This is the only series we don't know. You're going to be more in the know than we are, um, because that's going to be LAFC versus Portland or Vancouver. Um, so listen, I think it's kind of hard to prep for a series like this because like you don't know who they're playing. But here's my like monologue of stats that I think are interesting. On head-to-heads, LAFC drew one and won one against Portland, but both were super even games, and Portland took red cards in both. On the flip side, they won both versus Vancouver, and they smacked them on XG in both. They have smacked them on XG in all of the tournaments because apparently they get them in Leagues Cup, they get them in CCL, they get them in everything, and they take their lunch money every time they play Vancouver. However, I think there is some fair LAFC skepticism. So if you look at their expected goal difference trend line for the season, it is firmly negative. So they have a very good expected goal difference, but it is trending in the wrong direction over the course of the season. They have three XGD wins, so any game with greater than zero point 0.5 expected goal difference you can call a win. Anything less than that is more or less a draw. They have three of them since July, and it's not like it's only at one end. Like their XG is down and their XGA is up, which is not good. Now, maybe the answer is like they're an old team who like don't care about the playoffs. Their G plus differential is still the best in the league and still by far the best in the West. So all of that is real. And if you look at G plus in both boxes, or if you look at kind of the G plus differential overall, like I said, they're the best in the league. However, if you look at just G plus in both boxes and both zone 14, so like the crucial squishy areas of the field, like where G plus really gets added up and where it really matters, LAFC dropped to third in the league. A team in the West shoots up to second. That team, the Portland Timbers. I think that if they get Portland, this is a sneaky, very difficult series for LAFC, and they will be praying that in about 45 minutes' time, Vancouver are winning. Uh, Gentlemen, where are you at on Chivas USA Reborn and this series? Ben.
Um, yeah, I think that's the key thing. Like Portland have been dangerous all year for a lot of teams, and they cough up a ton of goals, but they are just so dangerous and they have the personnel. And I don't know if LAFC's defense has been as good. I mean, I don't think it's been as good this year as past years, but I think it's been even worse towards the end of the year compared to the beginning of the year. So I think you're right on that. I think it is a matchup dependent thing. And I think like a lot of the other, like everyone, whenever Evander comes up in the MVP talk again, it's just like, oh, well, Portland ended up ninth. But we'll see if like I think it's that getting hot at the right time thing. And I wonder if Portland have like the LA Galaxy. We'll get to Galaxy in a bit, but I've just there are these teams, and I think Miami too, although underlying they don't have it. It's just like they score goals and buckets. I just think they can score so many goals, it's not going to matter. And I don't like LAF if LAFC is playing from behind, they're in trouble because they are still so counter based. Like, so I think that's really the game state they're weakest to. They can't go down early. If they go down early in any of these games, then they're really, really in trouble.
So Harrison, I'm gonna get to you in a sec, but I'm very curious about that point specifically because Doyle flagged this up weeks and weeks and weeks ago when we talked about are LAFC the best team in the West? Like, should we just write the West off? Which was something I said and was like clearly very wrong.
Mhm.
Um, because LAFC the first half of the season played like legit attacking soccer, press and possess, like real stuff. And then they hit the middle of the season and played like bunker counter deep ball. And now maybe this is Cherundolo like doing his thing where like he's prepping for the playoffs and they're gonna do everything available to them. But given the best of three, like you should not play bunker counter. You should try to win the games because you are the better team.
Well, I think at one point on Extra Time, Doyle specifically pointed out the tactical switch happened after they got creamed by Columbus. Like they tried
For
to cut,
sure.
and so that then Cherundolo doubles down on what has been their like calling card for the seasons where they had been, MLS Cup contenders the whole time. So maybe that's the gambit. Like we have to double down on this because we don't like he didn't think that they were going to be good enough to play that more mixed style against the best teams in the East who are also playing that type of style. So you have to tactically figure that out and do something different.
Harrison, where are you at on this series and who is your pick?
LAFC is my pick. 100%. I think you're right with Portland. Portland has this. LAFC is going to have to possess if they play Portland, and that's going to go really poorly for them. And Portland's such a great counterattacking team. Low key, like if this series, if Portland wins tonight and they play against LAFC, that's probably going 3 games. Uh, Anthony is low key going to be a huge, huge player. They watch him. He's so very good on the counter. I
He
think
was
it'll be
he
a
was
coming out party.
he was real frisky in that Portland Seattle game, last game of the
He
season.
he's
He's
been I'm surprised because like whenever I watch Portland, he always pops, but his underlying numbers aren't great.
No.
He was like only has like 3 point something XG, but he has 6 goals on the season. Like
Mhm.
he overproduces on his underlying numbers so far. And so I'm kind of interested to see how he grows into this league. Um, Low key, I think I'm really interested to see how they would do against LAFC because I feel like LAFC is so good. It's hard for me not to look down the road and what is the inevitable either Seattle or LA Galaxy matchup. Um, LAFC is so good. And, I dropped something in chat earlier this week about Greg Maddux, right? And Greg Maddux holding on to some things. And I feel like LAFC is the type of team that does that, right? To where during the season, they
So
just kind of give away some stuff because it doesn't matter. You know what? We're going to play this because we know this is what works for us. And then we'll save it for the playoffs.
so to give the backstory because I think that's actually a really good point. Give the backstory of that, like the synopsis of that Greg Maddux story with the holding back certain pitches.
Yeah, so Greg Maddux was, I think this was later on in the 90s, maybe even early 2000s when the Killer Bees were buzzing down in Houston, and Houston was in the National League, and Jeff Bagwell came up to the plate to hit, and Maddux, met with his catcher and said, "Hey, I want to go inside." And he said, "The scouting report says don't go inside." And he said, "I want to go inside here." And he basically gave him a pitch up and in that he could handle, and he just absolutely yoinked it for a homer. And when they went back in the dugout, he's like, "Why did you do that?" And he's like, "He's going to be looking for that pitch. We're a good team. They're a good team. We're going to be playing in the playoffs. He's going to be looking for me to make that same mistake." And when the playoffs came, he didn't give him anything inside. He kept setting him up outside, 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 and Bagwell just was looking for that inside pitch. And after he struck him out, he went over to his catcher and was like, "You remember? This is why we set him up. This is why we did what we did." And I don't mean to be like 4D like chess, right? Like,
No, but we're talking about teams who have played each other 2 times already and
yeah,
potentially going to play them another 3 times. Like there is a certain amount of like hiding set pieces or like for example, if you're 3-0 down in the 60th minute of the first game of the season, are you going to adjust to the tweak in your head that you have for the second game, knowing that even if it goes really well, you're not going to come back from 3 goals down with 30 minutes left? Or do you just eat it and say, whatever, who cares? We lost the first game. Let's prep for the next week. And you keep it in your back pocket. I think that's one of the like such a fun little wrinkle that like it matters. Ben, who's your pick since we are way over time on this one?
Uh, I don't know. I feel this feels like a trap game if it were Portland, but I'm gonna go with LAFC. That seems like the smart pick.
I think Vancouver's going to beat Portland, so I'm also going to pick LAFC. And I think like LAFC
Oh,
Portland, it probably goes all 3 games, and they pinch all three. Alrighty, next up in the bracket with the return of the timer that I promise we will adhere to better. Seattle, Houston, Harrison, tell us about your beloved Seattle.
I mean, this game is going to come down to set pieces, and I know that's very. Oh my gosh, it's so deep, right? Like everybody always talks about these playoff games.
Seattle set pieces. Perish the thought.
Well, you know what? Like honestly,
What? Hold on. What was the stat that you had about Seattle and like open play goals at home or something?
they have scored like I want to say like 1 or 2 goals via open play all year. Uh,
That's insane.
yeah,
I
dude,
think I think it
it's
was
crazy.
I think it was over the whole season they scored 6 open play goals at home. I
Yeah.
think that was the number that I remember, which is ridiculous if real.
No, I need to go back and adjust it for from like when I looked at it, it was like back in August. But yeah, they have not done well open. Like they just do not create chances at home, and the reason for it is because teams make them possess, and they are not a possession based team. They don't have a team that can break you down. Paul Rothrock, like him coming on the counter is scary as hell. Him not in transition a lot less scary, right? Like there's just a lot less that he has at his disposal in terms of what his tools are as a soccer player. Albert Uzniak the same way. You're having to depend a lot more on Christian Roldan to do a lot more. And to be perfectly honest, I feel like that's an easier isolation, right? If you're gonna say, hey, we're going to make Paul Rothrock beat us, like okay. On top of the fact that now what you one of your big young up and coming players has a red card. Um,
Oh, so dumb.
it,
First off, anyone saying that's not a red card, you cannot scream the F word in the ref's face and throw your hands on a
it
yellow
was a childish play,
on a
like
yellow
regardless.
for what was clearly a foul. Like I saw people talking about like, well, I went back and rewatched the game and there were 17, I think the Sounder at Heart guys were like, there were 17 instances of dissent towards the referee that he didn't book. No, it's not the same when you look in his face, scream the F word at his face, and throw hands. And then Rusnak comes in and says the same thing and throw like just don't. Maybe just don't. How about
It
that?
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it happened 17 times before or if that's the first time in the game, right? Whenever you do something like that, you're putting the game in the referee's hands. And as he's 20 years old now, like it's a lesson learned.
For
But
sure. For
that
sure.
does
And
put
and I
that
don't even
attacking.
to be fair, I don't even think Obed was going to start. Like I think he's a useful rotation piece here. Whatever, it is what it is.
Oh,
Ben,
he will
I'm
start. He will absolutely start. He
well,
would have absolutely
he
started.
definitely won't now. He definitely won't now. Ben, Ben, I'm curious
Let me
what.
just say real fast from
Yeah,
Houston's
sorry.
perspective because I really want to touch on this. They don't have an attacking piece. In fact, I think they're one of the only team to not have a guy that has 10 plus XG plus XA in the playoffs. I'd have to go and double check that, but that
They
was
have one. They have Amin Bassi, but Amin
from
Bassi
open play. From open play, Bossy has some penalties, so that
he does not have any penalties this year. He did have a bunch last year, but he does not have any this year.
Maybe it's from set pieces.
Regardless, he has 11. It's
Yeah,
not like it really changes that much.
from open play he had 9, so that's the only reason why I gave that caveat.
Yeah, there might be some free kicks in there or corners
Yeah,
or something.
and Bossy's a good player. Bossy's a solid player, right? Bossy's probably not going to win this game on his own, right? We're going to have to see more of what we saw against LA Galaxy, and that is just a late game set piece. And here's the thing: Houston's really, really good at their set
So
pieces. They have a solid
this
set piece team.
this is where I was going to take this towards Ben is like I think one of the fun things about playoffs is like styles make fights. And you talk about Seattle are like not great at breaking down an organized defense. What are Houston? They are one of the best 4-4-2 mid blocks in the league, and they're an excellent set piece team. That's really tough. So, like, Ben, for you, like, do you lean Houston because of that, or like, are Seattle just good enough? Like, where are you at?
So you were looking at the talking about home goals from open play earlier. That different. I think the for Seattle it was what goal difference of those at home was 1, and for Houston it was 9 over the season. And then you flip it to away. I think Houston was at 0 and Seattle was at -3. So despite not having those weapons, Houston is able to do this from open play in a way that Seattle isn't. And I would say you're right. Both of these teams sort of struggle with that. We all, everyone talks about how Houston plays beautiful soccer right now. I don't think it sort of ends up in much. And I think both of these teams are basically going to try and turn this into a sprint fest, like those classic RSL Seattle playoff games of a few years ago. I don't know how much beautiful soccer is going to be played in this, and that I think that makes it harder to predict as a result. But I'm leaning Houston right now.
You think
So
it's a transition game back and forth, or you think it's a set piece game back and forth?
I think it's going to be both. I
That's right.
think those are the moments that you have to choose from, and it doesn't matter if you get more of those moments than the others if you're not going to be executing on them. So I think that makes it hard to predict.
There's so many
See,
niche details. I would love to have like a 40-minute conversation about this. So
it's gonna
I'll
be it's a fun series. And I mean, the next time we pod will be in between legs 2 and 3. So like it might be done. That might be profiling a really fun game 3. So Harrison, who are you leaning here if Ben you're taking Houston?
I really I do want to take Houston,
No,
but
you don't. You want Seattle.
no. So head says Houston's a really bad matchup for Seattle, and but I think that Seattle is a really good away team. Because they do get to get in transition, and when they get in transition, they can do some scary stuff. So I'm gonna go with Seattle because I think that I think in Houston they can win.
I am also going Seattle, mostly by virtue of Houston are the third worst attacking team in the West, and Seattle are the best defensive team in the league, I think. It's certainly the best in the West, and I just think like if you don't concede, you can't lose, and if
That's
you can't
true.
lose, you have a 50% chance of winning that game, and there's not much else to say. Moving on, RSL Mini. This is a fun one. Because Harrison, you are an RSL softie, and we here at ASA have become like a little bit Minnesota curious because they've had quite a fun back half of the season and seems like they might be doing some smart stuff in and around. Ben, where are you at on this series? Do you have any deep thoughts before we let Harrison like gush about Pablo?
So, I I am stuck on RSL because if you look at the season-wide stats, it's clear what the better team here is. It's RSL and it's not even close. But the thing is I apart one of the things I keep coming back to is for so many teams it was a season of 2 seasons. RSL was a season of 2 seasons, and I don't think they're as rough as some other teams in a similar position, but they sold who I thought was their best player. I actually don't think it's Chicho. I thought it was Andres Gomez. Um, I don't think they've had as much continuity, lineup wise as they were able to that first half of the season. And if you look at the past few games, their numbers just aren't there. They're still well organized. Pablo Mastroeni's will always keep his team well organized, and so that's gonna give them a shot. But their offense is not nearly as good as it was the first half of the season. Whereas Minnesota's on a tear. Minnesota's offense is hot. Their defense is decently solid. Like this is another upset for me. I think I'm leaning towards Minnesota just because of that momentum factor, because they're clicking right now, and because our RSL just hasn't shown what they had before.
I think I bigly agree, especially on the Carlos Gomez point. Like he's 30% of their XG for the season is either shot or created by him. That's like very difficult to replace. Um, I think I made the point earlier about like how being tactically flexible, I think, is really valuable. And like the team I was thinking about when I was talking about that was Minnesota, who have played they have played RSL twice. They have drawn both games. Both games are vaguely even on XG. And they played a back three in one and a back four in the other. And they have flip flopped between the two all season. And I think there is some unique benefit there when you're playing someone better than you that you have other cards in the deck. Um, Harrison, before I let you go off, RSL are the pressiest team in MLS this year by attacking half interrupting G plus. That's shocking. Like super cool. Like definitely not Pablo's historical MO.
I feel like Pablo's kind of evolved now. Don't you joked about me gushing. I don't like Pablo at all. I've never cared for him as a coach, and I feel like they've succeeded in spite of him in some ways. And I don't mean to be that way because Pablo's another human being and he has a job, and I hate calling people out like that. I call out FCC just because like my heart kind of breaks for what they could have had in terms of a season, especially in the East. I don't mean it like demonstrably like attacking wise, but look, RSL has been like such a fantastic team all year long. And yes, they've kind of trended down in recent weeks, but overall, they had a really good July. They had a solid August. Like they aren't a bad team and they are just weird enough to start some stuff in the West. Minnesota, I'm still out on. Like I love how you said Minnesota curious. I think it's fair to be curious about them, and I think they're an intriguing team. I think where they've grown from at the start of the season to where they are now is like 180 degrees. I will 100% go with that, but I don't know that they're really a fit. They're really not a ready product.
So here's kind of the last stats before we'll go another direction. Minnesota won six of their last eight, four of their last five, and they conceded one goal in those last five games. A little bit XG fortunate in those results, but like the results are there.
Absolutely.
Uh, to me, as we make our picks, I'm gonna gamble on Mini. Like I don't think RSL are that good, and I think like with Yaboa and Taniolo Asai, like that's a legitimate like striker on the field all the time that is not giving you a moment to breathe. You have Pookie is like maybe back fit. And then with Flongwane and Pereira and Robin Lod and like Dane St. Clair has a very good penalty record. Like there's enough coin flips in their favor that I think I just ever so slightly lean Minnesota. Ben, who've you got?
Yeah, I think I'm leaning Minnesota too. And I think
Really?
the load thing, he's been great. He's been able to put the ball all over the field this year. The
Comeback player of the
best
year?
comeback player of the year, second best in terms of G plus over average after Messi in terms of attacking midfielders. Or
Yeah,
no,
no,
after
no,
Puig,
no.
after central
Yeah,
midfielders
behind
after
Puig.
Puig. Yeah,
Yeah, which like, what are you gonna
it
do?
was
Puig
just
is
insane.
Messi. Harrison, who you got?
Unsurprisingly, I have RSL. I think you guys are totally right. Last 8 games, Minnesota's been amazing and they've done really well. They've taken 15 expected points. They've got 19 out of them. They're doing awesome. RSL during that same period, not too far behind. I mean, you have Minnesota sitting number one, but in that time frame, in all of MLS, by the way, and RSL is not sitting too far back at seventh, right? Like, I think this is going to be a sneaky, really good series. I think the nice is going to kind of fade out. I think it's going to kind of be a tempestuous event, and I'm kind of here for it.
Tempestuous. What a great word. Alrighty, moving on. The last series of the first round, the sparkling LA Galaxy against Ben, the Colorado correspondent, your beloved Rapids. Tell us about this series.
It's over, folks. I mean, it's been a fun run, but oh my
Oh, that
God.
was so sad.
I
I
am
was so
sad,
defeated.
dude.
I thought I
I had so much hope, like just to see something fun in these playoffs, and now Georgie's hurt and Cole's been hurt. Cabral might be coming back, which is cool, I
Geor-
guess. But like, it's
Georgie
yeah,
not even training, by the way. Apparently
no,
everybody else is training, but Georgie's not even
no.
training.
I
Like
think
sitting on the
Georgie's gonna be
side.
he's gonna be a scratch for the first game. I think he's done. I don't think he's gonna come back. Um, I think it's fine. It's like this is about next year, and that's my thing. It was always gonna be about next year. Anything that happened after doing really well in Leagues Cup and clinching playoffs was just, bonus. So we'll have fun. But oh man, it's been bleak. Like we were talking about Minnesota winning. They played Colorado at home 3-1 Colorado was held to less than 0.5 XG that game. Like it's bleak right now. This is a depleted roster. The defense was shaky to begin with, even when we had Moise Bombito to cover the flanks, and now we don't even have that. It's the Galaxy are just too high powered. We don't have the guns that we had at the beginning of the year. I think it's going to be done in two for
I
Galaxy.
Can we
I
really
think
fast? We talked a little bit about it via text, but Keegan Rosenberry, like as that center back, kind of flexing in there to be that speed. Can you talk about that real fast?
It kind of fell apart at the end of Austin, but yeah. So basically, what happened is Lawless Abubakar got subbed out halftime against Austin last game of the season. For the first time, I mean, Keegan has slotted in at center back before, usually in a back three. I think this is his first time playing right center back in a back two with Maxu. And I think it was good because it let us get our best soccer players into the defensive line. It was Reggie Cannon on the right, Sam Vine subbed in on the left. He's been coming back from injury. So I thought, at least given what we have, it was probably our best look. But oh man, those last 5 minutes, like those goals were both Maxu's fault. Oh, like at least half Maxu's fault. So I'm just really down on the defense right now.
I get it. I just you talking about Bombito being gone. I just feel like Keegan coming in that spot, it makes a lot of it kind of formulates it presents those same attributes that you had previously with his I don't want to say speed because I think that's
I mean,
probably not a thing at this point in time, but
yeah,
like he's a little bit more flexible and a little
he's
bit more
calmer. He's
let's say
calmer.
let's
He
say
calms the
movement
game
forward.
down.
Can we say
Yeah,
movement forward?
we can call it that.
So I think it's an interesting setup. You're right, LA Galaxy's so good, right? They're so good. They're so talented from an attacking perspective. And when you're a little bit weak on that defensive line, like obviously the Galaxy have the weapons that they're going to absolutely score. So this means what can you do to generate opportunities? And yeah, Colorado has just really struggled with that also the last few weeks. So and
It's less
Georgia
than an
being
expected goal per game, non-penalty goal per game, less than one. It's not good. This is not a playoff caliber offense, unfortunately, because of the injuries.
I,
yeah.
I think I think the tough thing, right, is that the Galaxy are so good in possession and the Rapids rely so much on the press to generate attack for them that like they're too good to press them for stuff without
Yep.
giving up so much going the other way. I think it's a really bad stylistic matchup for the Rapids. And like it is what it is, but like that game a few weeks ago they got drilled.
Yeah. And it was
And
not I mean, even before the game where Cabral got injured in LA, it was hard there too. They had possession, they had control of the game, and they used it.
and I think you know what, like single elimination, like there are worlds where like you pick off two passes and you go 2-0 up and you win. But I think with it being a double elimination style, like best two out of three, like it's very hard to make that work. And I think the Galaxy being so cavalier, like is really like it will do them very well in best of three. Like I think it's very unlikely they will get picked off here. But if you told me they lost in the next round to Seattle or RSL or like whoever they play in the next round, like I could totally believe or Houston, like I could totally believe it because it's one game. But I think Colorado get done a little bit dirty here by having to play the best attack, who are probably suited to this format a
Oh yeah,
little
like if
bit
somebody
more.
lost in Houston besides the Galaxy, it was the Rapids, 100%. That goal changed the fortune of many.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't even think about like, yeah, the world where they get to play not the
Well,
Galaxy play
no.
LAFC instead.
Well, I don't think the Rapids have ever won on the road against LAFC ever. So
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
I,
You
I
are
feel
you are
I
what you
feel
are.
like they are. I feel stylistically, it's still it's a better matchup, right? I feel like the Rapids
I
could
hear
pull some
that.
shenanigans,
I hear
and
that.
um, yeah, I don't feel like it's such a foregone conclusion. I think we can at least we can spin ourselves in a frenzy to at least convince ourselves that it's a 3 game series. I don't. I yeah. I This is one of those that I don't feel in any way that that's what this is. I This is a 2 game series. The Galaxy are already probably planning for the next one.
Well, I don't know about that, but I do think it is a Galaxy win. So Harrison, you're taking Galaxy as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
Alrighty, well that's all the series to round it up. We've got Miami beating Atlanta. We've got Charlotte clipping Orlando. We've got FC Cincinnati knocking off New York City FC. We've got Columbus taking down the Red Bulls. We have LAFC taking down to be decided, probably Vancouver, but who knows? Seattle edging Houston. Uh, Minnesota beating RSL and the Galaxy taking down the Rapids. Good mix of like favorites and underdogs there, actually. That's
Can I do something? We have a few minutes.
Yep.
Can I get your takes for MLS Cup?
Who I think MLS Cup will be.
Yeah. I have mine. If you want to throw
Yeah,
yours,
fired off. Fired off. Who's yours?
I got Cincinnati and LAFC with LAFC winning.
Oh, that's fun. I'd be pretty happy with that. Ben, who have you got for MLS Cup? Is there any reason you have that, Harrison? Like, or is it just like that's the vibes?
I think all right. So here's the thing, right? Like you've kind of heard me kind of go against the grain on a couple of these picks. I think that there's a lot of teams that once you start playing in a 3 game series, a lot of stuff can go your way. Um,
But remember,
Same as it.
there's only one 3 game series, and then it's all single elimination.
Sure, absolutely. I think that FC Cincinnati can beat any team on, and especially think back of how hard they just whooped Miami. I think they match up actually pretty well against Columbus. I think the question is whether or not they have to face New York Red Bulls. I think New York Red Bulls would actually be the one problem spot. But I think that,
Wasn't that series last year like cocaine? Wasn't it like
yes,
Yeah,
insane?
insane.
like liquid cocaine. Yeah, that was just like guzzling narcotics.
That'd be fun. I would like that. I think they play each other too in the next round if the Red Bulls sneak through.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I really like that aspect. The other side of it is I think LAFC is a better defensive team than LA Galaxy, and that's what it comes down to. I think that LAFC can beat the Galaxy in that 1 game, and the fact that they're going to host it. So that's I don't think there's a team outside of the Galaxy that can beat LAFC. And even then, I pick LAFC over that.
Ben, who you got? MLS Cup.
I like the LAFC analysis. I think I'll go with them in the West again. Third year in a row, right? My God. Um, I think I'm gonna go with Miami, and I think they're gonna win it all on the
Hey.
East. I mean, I'm just like I think through it. I think the way the format is played, I think of how much depth they have and how they can approach each team that they would come up against. And then they can just have Messi like put the ball in the net whenever he damn pleases after the 70th minute. And I think that's just gonna do it.
My final is I'm split 50-50 between two. One is like me trying to like think it into existence because this is the plot I want.
Let's
And
do it.
that's Miami Galaxy. I want
That would
Miami
be
versus the
fun.
Galaxy in the final, and I want the Galaxy to win because I think it's better for the league if Messi doesn't win because I think there's like more like
More
uh
drama.
what's his name? Pablo Marer.
Maurer.
I'm having a stroke saying that. The athletic writer.
Oh
So
yeah, yeah. Pablo
he,
Mar.
he
Yeah.
he like dunked on the league's like social media metrics all being way up and like league attendance being way up this year. And he's like, "Oh, great. Like what soccer fan cares about TikTok views when the league is the least compelling it's ever been?" And like first off, because you don't find it compelling, like clearly other people do if all the social media metrics are up. Like you can't fake that. And like there's 11 million more people attended MLS games this year or something insane like that. Like they broke the record attendance in week 30.
But I kind of agree with that. I kind of agree with
That's
you
fun.
because,
No, listen, listen.
because all those views, and I really
It's
strongly,
messy. It's messy stuff.
it's messy. And as soon as he goes away, those eyeballs aren't in
I
the
don't
same.
think that's true. I don't
I
think that's true. I think there's like
look,
enough staying power in the league.
you look around the league, and some of the teams are at their league's lowest attendance.
Yeah, because they're terrible.
The Sounders are the lowest attendance they've
Yeah.
ever been.
Yeah. I'm kidding. Well, I don't know. I think there's lots of other factors to that, but the Sounders are like they're low, but which is still like the fifth best attendance in the league. And I think there's some like we do not have enough
There's
time
some
to get
Sounder
into like
specific stuff
yeah,
there,
we
I'd
don't have to
say.
get into we don't have enough time to get into the general like
That's fair, but I mean,
Sounders apathy in the fan base.
So what
However,
I'll
we can talk about that.
go for it,
what
Garrett.
we do not have enough time to get into the like league macroeconomic trends here. My point being that like I think there are lots of people who have really enjoyed this season as much as like there are things to not like. I think broadly the league is trending in the right direction, and I think it would be really fun if that was the final and Messi didn't win, because then it introduces more storylines for next year, and like there's a whole thing, and like more meaningful
That
games is always good.
I think it's good that Beckham didn't win right off the bat. I think it's good that he
Exactly.
had to struggle to get to his
Yes.
MLS greatness. I think that
Yes.
mattered.
The series finale is always the most important, and it's a cliffhanger. So
Now, what I think it will be, and I think this is equally as good a storyline because it will be the third or fourth final
yes,
between these two teams,
yes,
is LAFC Columbus. Yeah,
yes.
like I think that's where
That's
it'll
what I
be.
want. I still think
So
Miami's gonna
if you
happen, but
give
that's
me
what I
either
want.
if you give me either of those two finals, I will crack open a bottle of wine and just enjoy. No analysis, just a fan, because it'll be great. Anyways, that is all from us today. We will be back in 2 weeks between legs 2 and leg 3 of the first round. Hopefully, there will still be some games going on to talk about. I'm sure there will be. But if you're liking the pods, if you're liking ASA, you can support us by joining the Patreon. It's $5 a month. There's one tier. You go into the Discord. The Discord has been very active lately during the games, um, and has been super, super fun. NWSL is coming to a head. There is one game left in their season. ASA are probably going to make the playoffs, but there's the expected own goals pods are popping off with Evan and Eric, so I would highly recommend you check those out as well. Anyways, that's all from me, Ben and Harrison. As always, folks, enjoy the soccer.